Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the Sauce College Basketball Saturday. I got 6 games I'm going to run through real quick. Let's go.
Welcome to the Sauce. The Sauce. Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
First up, UConn on the road in Georgetown. This is a 12 noon tip Eastern time. Total is 146.5. Line opened up Georgetown plus 14.5, but there's so much action on Georgetown. Everyone's betting the Hoyas. Line actually drops late Friday night down to 13.5. Couple of massive mismatches here in favor of UConn. Mismatch number 1, you got the UConn Huskies. Their offense, 9th in the country in adjusted efficiency. Georgetown's defense, 249th. So you got a top 10 offense against a bad defense. Mismatch number 2 is in the same category. Still talking about UConn's offense against Georgetown's defense, the 3-ball. Now, UConn's a pretty good three-point shooting team. Not amazing. Shoot about 35% from 3. But Georgetown's opponents hit their threes at 37.6%, which is 335th in the country. So UConn should have some really good looks from deep. But there is a huge area where we can find some value on the Hoyas here. Size, rebounding. Georgetown could definitely hang with UConn when it comes to cleaning the glass. In fact, in their first matchup just 2 or 3 weeks ago, this was in UConn. UConn won the game 84-73, but Georgetown actually won the rebounding battle on that 40-28. So who's to say now back home in Georgetown that the Hoyas can't control the glass again? A couple matchup trends that were sent in to me between these two. The over's 5-1 in the last 6 matchups between these two. Georgetown has taken 11 of the last 16. I'm definitely on Georgetown here, but I'm a little worried about them blowing these second half covers. We've seen it a few times this year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split my money in half. I'm going to put a half unit on Georgetown first half plus 8, and I'm going to put the other half unit on the full game, Georgetown plus 13.5. Next game, Kansas on the road at Iowa State here. Another 12 noon tip. Total for this is just 136. This line was Iowa State minus 1.5, but look at everyone on Kansas. Everyone's betting the Jayhawks here, and the books respond. Line moves a full 2.5 points. We're now looking at Iowa State plus 1. Quick look at this matchup. We got two teams heading in opposite directions here. Kansas did lose 3 straight games, but they followed that up with 2 big come-from-behind wins. This Jayhawks team showing us some heart in the past 2 games. We got a different story with the Cyclones. Iowa State picked up a real nice win over Kansas State, but since then, they got their asses kicked by Missouri, and then they went and blew like a 23-point lead to Texas Tech. That was their first Big 12 win of the season, the Red Raiders. The silver lining for Iowa State is both those ugly performances were on the road. In fact, Iowa State has lost 4 straight on the road. This game's at home, and Iowa State's been good at home. In fact, they're perfect. They haven't lost yet. They're 11-0 with 3 big wins, Kansas State, Baylor, and Texas, all at home. Now, these two teams just played about 2 weeks ago. Iowa State went into Kansas and lost a heartbreaker. Final score was 62-60. So part of me is like, yo, I want to take Iowa State. They're going to split. They're going to get them back for that heartbreaking loss. But Toast sent in these notes, and I couldn't agree more. Bill Self's been winning these big games for 15 years. Kansas has an experienced point guard and arguably the best player in the entire country in Wilson. So I'm going to agree with Toast and fade the Cyclones. Unfortunately, they're going to drop both games to Kansas. I'll lay the 1 point. Give me Kansas minus 1 next game. Auburn on the road in Tennessee. SEC battle here. This is a 2 p.m. start. Totals at 134.5. Line opens up Tennessee minus 9.5. And everyone's on the Vols, but the line actually dropped late Friday night. We're looking at Tennessee minus 9 now. Another game with some glaring mismatches. This one's serious. So Tennessee's got the best defense in the country, as you probably know, especially from the 3-point line. Opponents are hitting just 22.5% of their threes. And in comes Auburn, one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the country, certainly one of the worst in the SEC. Auburn hits just 29.9% of their threes. In Auburn's 5 losses, their 2 guards, Green and Johnson. Green is 2 for 21 for 3, and Johnson is 3 of 19. So that is the recipe for Auburn losing games. Bad shots being taken from the perimeter. Tennessee's a real tough place to go in and win. That crowd's going to be hostile. For a struggling shooting team against such an elite perimeter defense, I think Auburn's offense is going to struggle. We also got Tennessee coming off a bad loss to Florida too, so it might be a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. I hate to go completely square in 2 games in a row, but I can't back Auburn here. I think Tennessee wins it comfortably. Yeah, I'd be a lot more comfortable laying 6, but the line is 9, So let's lay the 9. Give me Tennessee -9 next game. Illinois on the road in Iowa here. Big Ten battle. This game starts at 2:30. Total is set at 152.5. Line opens Iowa -2.5, but it actually jumps up to 3.5 because everyone is on Iowa. Public's heavy on the Hawkeyes here. Brief history of this matchup. Iowa has now dropped 5 straight to Illinois, dating back to before the COVID pandemic. In fact, the last time Iowa beat Illinois was February 2nd, 2020. So almost 3 years ago to the day exactly. This might be a good game to throw a live bet down because it's going to be very obvious who's in control of this game because their play styles are so different. Illinois has arguably top 10 half-court defense in the country. They want to slow the game down. They want you to have to stop your offense and beat them on the clipboard. Iowa, on the other hand, is trying to do the exact opposite. They're trying to run the floor, push the ball down the court. So the reason that information is important because regardless of what the score is, judging by the pace of the game, you can kind of tell who's in control, at least for the time being. Iowa's been good as hell at home this year. They only have 2 losses at home on the whole season, and they actually haven't lost a home game since before Christmas, until now. I like Illinois. What's my favorite basketball saying? Defense travels. Illinois has a top 15 defense. They're going to make this game physical. They're going to keep the Hawkeyes from getting comfortable, keep them from getting out in space. I'm taking the Illini. Give me Illinois +3.5 next game. Purdue on the road at Indiana here. This is a 4 p.m. start. Total is 139.5. Line is Indiana +1.5, and everyone's on the Hoosiers early. I'm talking 64% of the tickets, 93% of the money on Indiana as of Friday night. This is a huge rivalry. It's the battle for the state of Indiana. Obviously, both schools are located in Indiana, and a majority of the players on both these teams are from the state of Indiana. So this is an important game for both teams. Obviously, what's the first thing that jumps out at us when we look at this game? Easy. The 2-star big men. You got Edey versus Trace Jackson Davis. You got 2 guys that are in the running for National Player of the Year. I mean, Edey's gonna win it. We all know that. But Trace Jackson Davis is what, like number 5 and 6 in the running for that? Obviously, Edey's got the size advantage and the strength advantage. Edey is absolutely massive, but Trace Jackson Davis is athletic as hell. He's one of the craziest, most explosive college basketball athletes I've ever seen. If you just glance at these 2 guys, you might be like, oh, Edey's gonna dominate him. He's just too big. And you might be right, but do not underestimate TJD. Been watching this kid in Indiana for a couple years. He is good. Honestly, I thought at this short line there was going to be a lot more action on Purdue than there is. It almost makes me want to take Purdue, but I'm sticking to my guns. I liked Indiana from the jump. I like them to upset the #1 team in the land. I'm on the Hoosiers. Give me Indiana +1.5 next game. Texas on the road at Kansas State. This game starts at 4 p.m. Total is 149.5. Line opened up Kansas State -1.5, but it dropped down to 1. Look at all the action on the Wildcats. Everyone's betting Kansas State here. First thing that jumped out at me from this matchup was the spot for Kansas State because they continue to dominate in this spot. First off, they're at home, right? Perfect 12-0 at home on the season, Kansas State is. Second of all, they're coming off a loss. They're also a perfect 4-0 this season coming off a loss. So the Kansas State Wildcats have performed very well in this situation so far this season. These 2 teams met on January 3rd. Kansas State went into Texas and hung 116 points on the Longhorns in their own building. So there's part of me that's like, oh, Kansas State's gonna have confidence. They know they can score on this team. They know they can beat this team. But there's another part of me that's like, yo, Longhorns are comers for some revenge. I love how this Kansas State team is showing out right now. I mean, after the football team wins the Big 12, for the basketball team to come out and play like this, it's dope. They've earned the hype. That being said, I still think this Texas team, top to bottom, is much more talented. They already got them. They went into Texas and got them. This is where Texas gets them back. I'm on the Longhorns here. Give me Texas +1. If anything changes with these bets, I will let you know on Twitter, so give me a follow there if you're interested. Also, if you want the top bets, we're doing like a top 5 bets, I think, for Saturday. We're doing 2 parlays of the day. So if you're interested in that, head over to KyleKirms.com or download the Sauce Network app. College basketball Saturday. There's also 11 NBA games, a loaded day for betting. Remember to bet responsibly, and I will talk to you on Twitter.